All right, so um, we're gonna start here by doing the lower and thoracic regions of the body. Okay, and I must say it's actually way simpler to understand here. It looks very long, but it's not. Okay, so um, again, starting from the left ventricle, um, oxygenated blood is going to go through the descending aorta up to the ascending aorta. Okay, and then go to the descending thoracic aorta. Now, in the descending thoracic aorta, there are a couple branches you should know about right here. Okay, so if I actually do that, there you go. You can see it pretty clearly, these ones. And those coming off are your visceral arteries of the thorax and your parietal arteries of the thorax. Okay, and again, a visceral, it goes to organs, and parietal actually just goes to some parietal muscular, I should say. It goes to some muscles, okay? Now, sorry, continuing down the, oh, sorry, one more thing I have to mention. It doesn't actually connect here towards the descending thoracic aorta. However, and that's because I just simplified it by removing it. But these intercostal vein arteries, right? I'm not too sure if you can see them. Yeah, so these arterial intercostals, okay, right here and right here. These just supply blood to the intercostal muscles in between the ribs, okay? And again, they are a branch off of the descending thoracic, okay? So the descending thoracic has a couple of branches, three, and to be specific, the visceral arteries of the thorax, the parietal or muscular arteries of the thorax, and then the intercostals, okay, which are these. All right, so now that we covered descending thoracic, let's go down, and we're actually going to reach the abdominal aorta. The aorta is pretty long, right? So it goes all the way from here to here, but this is where it ends, okay? So the abdominal aorta gives off two branches that I want you to know. Common iliac artery, the right one, and then the left common iliac artery. So whenever you see a common in the name, it just means it's a division, okay? So common iliac artery, and then left common iliac artery, so right and left. Then as we move down, okay, towards the sacral region, okay, we're gonna see the external iliac and internal iliac artery coming from the common iliac artery, okay? And so the common iliac artery, like I said, gives off branches of internal iliac, okay, right here. And again, the internal iliac just goes posteriorly and supplies blood to posterior muscles over here. All right, so and the external iliac continues downwards. All right, it's another branch of internal iliac right there. Um, External iliac continues downwards, okay, and it actually splits. It doesn't split, it changes name, I should say. It changes name into the femoral artery. And why is that called the femoral artery? It's because it's at the femur, okay? It splits at the femur, right? So if I actually remove that right there, you can see femoral artery right at the femur, actually, okay? And the femoral artery is going to give us two branches, okay? Um, well, I should say a name change and a branch, okay? So the branch that it gives off is the deep femoral artery, which actually wraps around the posterior of the leg and innervates the posterior thigh muscles. Not innervates, again, supplies blood. I'm sorry. Supplies blood to the posterior thigh muscles. Now, the femoral artery, if you follow it down, okay, becomes the popliteal artery, right? So, popliteal artery, there you go, right there, right? So, if I remove that femoral artery, this is your popliteal artery. You can actually hold on. Let me just remove everything. There we go. Popliteal artery. You can see it on its own view right here. There you go. Popliteal artery. And popliteal artery is posterior, okay? So it goes, you can actually see it. So femoral artery comes in anterior, switches posterior because popliteal muscle is back here, okay? So it goes to the popliteal artery. And the popliteal artery is very important here. It splits into two things, okay? So it splits into the posterior tibial and, whoops, and anterior tibial, okay? So popliteal artery to posterior tibial artery, anterior tibial artery, all right? And they both go all the way down towards your toes, okay? Not to your toes, to your actual heel, okay? So to your calcaneus bone. And they run the length of the tibia and the fibula, okay? So your posterior tibial artery gives off a branch. Of course it does, right? And that's called the fibular artery, fibular or peroneal, right? And if I, again, deselect the fibular artery, you can see it on its own right here, right? And it's fibular because it's on that actual lateral side, right? So there you go. You can see that running down. If I go down here, this is where it ends, okay? Ends right here. Now, where it ends, that doesn't concern us anymore because, you know, it ends at the calcaneus, but it doesn't concern us. So it brings blood down here. Now, we covered what the posterior tibial does, okay? So let me go back here. Popliteal splits into posterior, anterior, okay? Popliteal again gives off a branch called the fibular artery, okay? After it does that, it actually gives off two more branches. It's called the lateral plantar and the medial plantar, okay? So if we examine these on their own, and again, plantar means that they're just on the plantar surface of the foot, like down here, okay? So your medial plantar goes towards your toe, okay, to the metatarsal here, and it's gonna actually branch off more and make an arch, just like in your hands, but it doesn't matter here. Um, and the lateral plantar goes obviously laterally, right? And this is happening on both sides. I'm just showing it on one side because it's way more simpler. Okay. All right. That's it. That's for your posterior tibial. Okay. Now your anterior tibial, if you look at it, it goes from a posterior location to an anterior location. All right. So again, the name matters. All right. Name matters a lot. You can say a name. You can say a lot by the name, and it stops about the talus. Okay. And the anterior tibial is just going to give off another artery or change its name into what's called the dorsalis pedis. Okay. So let me select that. Oh, there you go. The dorsalis pedis, okay? And that's coming from the actual anterior tibial artery, okay? Um, and I think that covers all of the lower limb. Yeah, that's it. But just to quickly review one more time, okay? So, just to quickly review things. Left ventricle, ascending aorta, arch of the aorta, then you go to the descending thoracic aorta. What happens with the descending thoracic aorta, right? On the descending thoracic, well, you have a couple of branches. You have the visceral and parietal arterial branches, okay? And you also have these actual intercostal branches, all right? You can't see them connecting because I removed them, but they are actually connecting to the descending thoracic aorta. All right, so moving down from the descending thoracic, it changes names to the abdominal aorta, okay? And the abdominal aorta splits into the common iliac left and right, okay? Common iliac artery left and right. If we follow the common iliac artery, it's going to give you two branches called the external iliac artery and the internal iliac artery, okay? The internal iliac goes posteriorly to supply blood to the posterior muscles, and the external iliac is going to continue forward and give off one branch called or actually change its name to the femoral artery. Now, the femoral artery off the bat gives off a deep femoral artery branch. All right, so that branch that it gives off is called the deep femoral artery, and it goes posteriorly to supply blood to the posterior thigh muscles like your hamstrings. Um, all right, so following the femoral artery down towards your knee and then towards your actual leg, it becomes the popliteal artery. It changes names toward the popliteal artery, and if we follow it down, the popliteal artery, okay, now we're in the posterior view, okay, the popliteal artery is actually called popliteal because your popliteal muscle lies right here. Popliteal artery becomes the posterior tibial artery, and it branches an anterior tibial artery, okay? So posterior tibial and anterior tibial. Where does your anterior tibial go? Your anterior tibial goes anteriorly to the anterior side of the leg, and it gives off a branch called the dorsalis pedis. Okay, following the posterior tibial artery down, okay, it gives off a branch called the fibular. Okay, the fibular artery or the peroneal artery. All right, and the peroneal artery runs down the side of the leg. All right, um, and it actually just goes down here. Okay, now the from the popliteal, you got your posterior, anterior. Anterior goes to the dorsalis pedis. Posterior branches off to fibular, but posterior doesn't end there. It carries on. All right, so the posterior tibial, it keeps carrying on, and it goes to the plantar surface of your foot, and that's where it gives two branches called the lateral and medial plantar arteries. Okay, and the medial one obviously goes to the plantar surface of the foot, and the lateral one goes to the lateral surface of the foot. Okay, the lateral plantar surface of the foot. And that's about all of the arteries reviewed.